line road, then your destination will be on the right.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome to yet again another edition of Rasslin with Redbeard. We're up to number 8 here now in the program. Feel like we've covered a lot of territory here in a short period of time, but that's what I was kind of hoping for. This is, like I mentioned, the 8th edition of the show so far. I am today in Hanahan, South Carolina. This is July 20th, 2014. I am here for Old School Championship Wrestling as they are presenting Tag Team Wars 7. Old School Championship Wrestling is a promotion that's been around for quite some time. They've been running shows at least for 4 years because that's the length of time that my wife and I have been married, but I know they've been running for longer than that because I had heard of them prior to that, when she and I were still dating and when I just moved to Orangeburg, South Carolina. But like I mentioned, this is Hanahan. Hanahan is basically North Charleston, if you're familiar at all with the low country of South Carolina. This is a beautiful area. I will not kid around in saying that I really enjoyed the drive down here today. Pretty easy trip from where we are in St. Matthews, South Carolina. It's about right at an hour to get down here, so not a bad trip at all. The terrain is beautiful coming down here. I know I sound like I'm putting over Charleston as being a great tourist location when I don't really have to, because most people know Charleston is a very desirable city. A lot of great things here. But I enjoyed the trip down here today, even though the weather was a little bit foul. It was raining pretty heavily just about 2 miles away from here, and it's not raining at all right here where I am right now in front of the venue. So, but like I mentioned, the drive was great. No real ifs, ands, or buts about it in terms of detrimental things to report there. I have been to a couple of Old School Championship Wrestling shows in the past. Have not been to one in a long time. Just haven't had a chance to, unfortunately. The funny thing about OSCW is that it may have been responsible for my wife getting somewhat turned off to independent professional wrestling. Once upon a time, OSCW used to run their shows in the same area, but they were over towards like Charleston Southern in their campus, but they ran shows at a bar. Here again, talk about bar shows, but it was a real dive bar, and they had the ring set up in a part of the building to where it was basically just a big empty room, almost kind of like an unfinished room that was attached to the venue. But at that particular show that I took her to, Josh Magnum was there. He was in one of the main events that night, and the setup there was they had the ring, of course, and then around the ring you have guardrails, but then directly butted up against the guardrails were folding tables, like your traditional Devon get the tables type tables. But people would sit there, and it's in a bar, they're going to drink beer. Well, Josh at one point during his match got a little thirsty, came up to the table that was nearby us, grabbed a guy's pitcher of beer, and basically drank half of it. He poured a lot of it down his chest. That was one of a number of things that kind of soured her to stuff like this. It is what it is, though. Guys are going to be entertaining any way they can. But Tonight, as I mentioned, we have the Tag Team War 7 event going on here. The main event is the Flock, which is, as you've seen here recently from my WrestleForce videos, is these days consisting of Lodi and Sick Boy. They're going to be taking on the team of Gangrel, and I hate to say this, but I don't know the wrestler's name. I know he does like a Papa Shango voodoo type gimmick, so it'll be kind of an interesting pairing there. That's the main event. The rest of the card, I have no idea what it's going to be. Really and truly have no clue what I'm going to see here tonight. I know that in the past, guys like BJ Hancock, Eric Bradford, John Schuyler, Zane Riley, Vordell Walker, a lot of people have been through here. So whether or not they'll all be here or some of them will be here, I have no idea. But it's going to be kind of a toss-up here. Didn't really have anticipated coming to this show, to be honest with you. I just really decided in the past day and a half that I wanted to check this one out. So here we are. But that's not to understate what's going to be going on here this evening, but I just really don't know what the rest of the card is. I haven't seen anything on it other than the main event. But be that as it may, I'm going to have a good time here. Looking forward to the show. Looking forward to seeing a venue that's an actual sports complex, I guess you could call it, but it's a recreation center, but at least it's not a bar. Seems like every show I've been to here recently has been in a bar, so this is nice. Definitely somewhere you could bring your family and feel comfortable and have a good time. This is a nice area, like I mentioned, North Charleston. There's plenty of shopping around this area if you wanted to, if you're potentially on vacation when they're having a show. But yeah, I think this is going to be a good time here. To talk a little bit about what's been going on in the area this weekend. We've got a lot happening this weekend. Today here, case in point, up in, I think it's Elkin, North Carolina, you had the $5 wrestling show going on up there. It's Jake Manning's project with Freight Train. They're still trying to raise funds to get him across the pond there to England for the purposes of filming a documentary. That was going on here this particular day. Yesterday, I know that CWF Mid-Atlantic was running in Burlington. Always good shows up there. If you ever are in that part of North Carolina, check them out for sure. Guys like Trevor Lee are in there consistently. But CWF Mid-Atlantic has never had a problem getting top-notch talent. They always have really good action going on up there. I believe they may be hosting a Chikara event later this year as well, so I might have to stay tuned for that one. Yesterday also you had Trans-South Wrestling with a big show up in Gaffney, South Carolina at the Peach Festival. Now you think about things like a Peach Festival, it's just pure Southern hospitality. But they also had a pretty interesting card there in that the main event was the Rock and Roll Express going against Tom Pritchard and Tommy Wildfire Rich. So you had two classic teams there. I would have loved to have seen it just for nostalgia factor, if nothing else. But Trans-South always does good work. I'm looking forward to hopefully being able to get up to one of their events here in the future. I've seen two of them, I believe, in the past, and Derek Vanderford, he's got a good thing going up there. So you've got wrestling in all corners of the Carolinas here this weekend, and all over the United States for that matter, because Ring of Honor here ran some events this weekend, and one of them featured Kevin Steen's final appearance there. I've mentioned before that Steen's work on his vlog that he runs is partial inspiration behind what I do here. I've taken pretty much his exact camera angle that he speaks from quite often and ripped it off. But he gave a very heartfelt speech last night, and sad to see him leave the Indies, but at the same time, glad he's getting an opportunity to work for World Wrestling Entertainment. Speaking of that, you had a big debut here this week, The Mechanics. That's not a couple of guys who are turning wrenches, that's a couple of guys who are turning people's arms out of their sockets in the form of Scott Dawson and almost called him Zane Dawson, but Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder. Two guys who are very familiar to people who are accustomed to watching wrestling in this part of the world. They're going to make their debut on NXT TV here in the next couple of weeks. So definitely tune in for that and see those guys there, because they're two top-notch talents who've done a lot and who've come a long way. Can't say enough for them, and really glad they're getting an opportunity down there in NXT. With that, I think I've covered about anything or everything I want to cover here for this particular intro on the program. Like I say, we're here in Hanahan, South Carolina for Old School Championship Wrestling, and in wrapping up this intro, I will say this is my birthday. I'm 34 years old, and I feel 34 years old today because let's just say we've had an active weekend, my wife and I have. We've had fun. We've had a lot of fun. But all these grays that are starting to crop up in here and in this area, the old knees and lower back are definitely feeling them this day. But glad to have had another year. Glad to have had all that I do have right now, because I think I'm relatively young still, and to be where I am professionally, personally, whole 9 yards, I'm very happy and I feel very blessed to be where I am. But all that having been said, it's time for some wrestling. So this is Wrestling with Redbeard, number 8, Hanahan, South Carolina, Old School Championship Wrestling. See you inside.
All right, come on, Money. Come on. Carolina. Thank you.
How y'all doing? One, please, ma'am.
Here you go. Hold on to that. They're going to do a drawing for that later. They're giving away a gift certificate
Okay.
from a sponsor.
Thank you.
The winners of those 4 tag team matches will go into our main event, where we will crown new OSCW Tag Team Champions. Among the tag teams we've got this afternoon, the Washington Bullets. Former OSCW Tag Team Champions, the Sons of Midnight, Dr. Creo and Gangrel. The varsity team of Finley, Garrett, Bradford, and Zane Riley. And former WCW superstars Sick Boy and Lodi, the Flock, are involved in tag wars. So we've got an exciting one. Here's a man that needs no introduction. Thank you, tons of fun. I would like to bring your attention to these 3 gentlemen right back here and state the truth that Skyler was cheated. But that's okay. It's not a problem. Lady, if I want any crap out of you, I'll knock your head off and rip it out myself. Sit there and be quiet. No, listen to me. If brains were gasoline, you wouldn't have enough to power an Ants motorcycle around the inside loop of a Cheerio. Be quiet. Adults are talking.
All right, folks. Out here in the parking lot during intermission. Pretty good show so far. There's a lot of matches. There's got a lot more stuff to come here as well. We've had, I think, 4 or 5 matches so far. And we've got at least 4 more. So for $10, you got to think of the value of that. Match has been okay, nothing too superlative so far that I have to speak of. A couple of people that I was interested in seeing aren't going to be here this evening, apparently. I know they were talking about Vordell Walker. He was on the poster, but they said he wasn't able to make it. A few other people, like John Schuyler, who's over in England right now doing some tours over there, but still a good number of local known talent here. Probably the best match so far. Probably the one we just saw there. Well, but either that with Josh Powers and I forget the guy's name, but he's TK Stark's tag team partner against the Washington Bullets. Also the kind of random pairing of Alex Severinos and Michael Fraley versus Gangrel and Dr. Crom or something like that. I don't remember what his name is. I was going to comment on that though. This is Bizarro World down here because we've got kids cheering for Gangrel and the other guy who does basically a combination of the Boogeyman and Papa Shango as his gimmick, as the Sons of Midnight with Gangrel. You know, it's bizarre because you've got children that are cheering for a guy who's a vampire and another guy who's a voodoo priest or priest or something like that. I don't know. But the fact that you've got children cheering for that is just plain weird. And then you've got Alex Severinos and Michael Fraley, the clean-cut All-American types who are getting booed. So, there you go. It is what it is. You know, I made the comment before about people cheering for guys like Six and Timber being a little bit weird, but this is even more odd because, like I say, Gangrel is still Gangrel. He's still got the fangs, he's still got the blood, the whole 9 yards there. And they're cheering for him. So, what are you going to do? But we got a good crowd on here. Looks, I'd say, maybe in the realm of 200 or so. Not sure how many of them paid, but it's a good-sized crowd here. Weather's holding up pretty good. It's not too hot, not too bad. Hopefully going to be out of here in enough time to get home and get some rest here before work tomorrow. But we're at halfway here at intermission. Got 3 or 4, probably more matches to go. This is a pretty full lineup, but it's fun. It's been good here. And like I say, anytime you can get to Charleston, that's a good time. So I'm gonna head back inside and maybe get something to drink and use the restroom, and then we'll be starting up with the second half of the show. See you back inside.
But be a professional wrestler. And I worked hard and finally got an opportunity to live out my dream in front of all you fans. Now whether you loved me or you hated me, didn't matter. As long as I entertained you, that's all that mattered to me. What should matter to you is it didn't matter what the situation was. When I was in this ring, I gave you all that I had. Thank you. I got to live my dream for 14 years. I got to travel to places I never would have got to go to without wrestling. I got to meet some incredible people, made friends for life. I got to work for benefit shows to raise money for things that I believe in. Things that we can give back. And you know, early on in my career, someone told me it was the Fabulous Moolah. I don't know if y'all know who she is. I know you know who she is, Mike Lee. That's who trained me. Fabulous Moolah told me, wrestle every match like it's your last. Well, those words didn't really sink in. Even though I did give 110%, I didn't really know what that meant until March 2nd, 2014. Right about right here, the guy I was wrestling landed on my my leg. There's a freak accident. I don't blame him. Things happen. It's a rough sport. I haven't really been public about my injury because I wasn't really sure what the future held for me. But I'm willing to do that now. I want to do that now. What I have is a torn quadricep. I have a torn MCL, ACL, PCL, and both medial lateral meniscus. I'm lucky to be walking right now. I'll have surgery to repair my quad, and I'll have surgery to repair my knee. It's a 10 to 12 month recovery time. I've talked it over with my family. I've done a lot of soul searching. And I wrestled that match like it was my last, because it was. I've decided that this injury, for one, is going to take a long time to recover. And once it is healed, there's no way I'm going to be able to keep up with those guys back there. You know? So, you may see the Juggernaut doing other things, but it won't be wrestling. But I did want to thank all of you for believing in me and letting me live my dream. Thank you.
At 8 o'clock. Pretty fun little show there. The thing about shows like this is that from a wrestling perspective, you have to look at it in terms of what it is. This is obviously not a WWE show. This is not a Ring of Honor show. This is not even a TNA show. This is your typical indie wrestling show for South Carolina. You got some pretty good talent here. Nobody that I would say is lighting up the charts in terms of popularity or the realm of possibilities in terms of, you know, guys you might see at the next level. But still, the matches were entertaining. So you have to be able to take away from a show like this the fact that you had a good time, that you saw some stuff that was fun. The main event, especially the way it boiled down there between Zane Riley and Eric Bradford against Dr. Creo, I know his name now, and Gangrel. That was fun. It was a clever finish to the match there because I wasn't sure where they were going to go with that, but that was very clever and a very good way to crown the Varsity as the new OSCW Tag Team Champions. And that's the big storyline coming out of this show, is the fact that we have new OSCW Tag Team Champions. Again, the Varsity now hold those titles. Other big news coming out of the show is the fact that John Malice announced his retirement. Malice and I have had a conversation in the past, and he told me at that point in time the extent of his injury, it's not too far removed from what Marcus Lattimore had, in that his knee is basically torn to shreds. I hate it to hear that he's no longer going to be able to compete, but you know, these guys, they get into the ring and they put their bodies on the line, and unfortunately sometimes that happens. So Malice has officially announced his retirement from in-ring competition, but I imagine you'll still see him around in various functions at these shows, because he's been around, like he was saying in his speech there, for 14 years, and I don't think he's going to be going anywhere anytime soon. They did announce that their next date will be back here at the Hanahan Rec Center, September 28th. I think we've got a lot of shows that are kind of taking a break during the, or promotions, excuse me, that are taking a break during the month of August because of the fact that you've got a number of big talents that are unavailable, primarily because I think Skylar and a few others are still going to be on tours and booked pretty heavily elsewhere. But in the meantime, we've got a big thing happening here I want to mention before I get out of here. FanFest, Mid-Atlantic FanFest, coming August 2nd, the weekend thereof, I should say. This is going to be the final Mid-Atlantic FanFest. Used to be NWA Mid-Atlantic FanFest. Now it's just Mid-Atlantic FanFest. This is the last one they're ever going to do. Greg Price runs that program and does a tremendous amount of work in getting it put together. I think from what I've heard and what I've seen, it's just become kind of a thankless chore for him, and it's just not what it once was. But irregardless of that, he's put together a big program. There's going to be plenty of talent on hand in terms of doing signings and also matches. We've got a lot of top talent going to be appearing from, of course, pretty much everywhere other than WWE. You can have guys from TNA, Ring of Honor, local indies, whole 9 yards there, all put together in one pretty impressive card. Excuse me, lost my voice there for a moment. So that's something to look forward to there in the immediate future. That said, I'm going to be hitting the road here. Not sure where my next stop will be in terms of wrestling with Redbeard and these programs. Like I mentioned earlier, sometimes I don't know what I'm going to be doing with these shows. Sometimes I just pop up and say, hey, let's go to a show. But we'll have to figure that out here at some point in time. I'm sure there'll be something in August coming up here. But to wrap it up, I just want to say thanks for everybody, to those of you who have been tuning into the program on a regular basis. I appreciate it. For those of you who may be watching this for the first time, I appreciate you joining us as well. This is something that I enjoy doing, and if you enjoy it as well, I'd appreciate it if you would give me a subscription. Just hit that little subscribe button on there. Also, the like button is your friend as well. This is just me trolling for Mick Foley cheap pop type stuff here, folks. But at any rate, the subscribe feature does give you a pretty handy little tool there, in that it lets you see anything that people like myself, other YouTubers, upload on a consistent basis. So, all that having been said, it's time to go home. So, appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you down the road.